want to talk about the B-17. You've heard the fighter pilots talk about the B-17. I want to talk about from the perspective of a bomber pilot. B-17 was a beautiful aircraft. I loved it. It looked like a piece of sculpture to me. It could take an enormous amount of damage. And it did have some drawbacks. We flew at 150 miles an hour into headwinds of 20 or 30 miles an hour. Going over a target, we were about 130 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour. And we were in huge formations. So we were targets. And we suffered what they called unacceptable losses. And there was a point when there was pressure brought on our 8th Air Force to stop daylight bombing. But people like Tui Spotts and Ira Eaker, Curtis LeMay, and Hap Arnold held fast, and we continued to fly during the day with our particular specified bombing. And I'm proud of that. But our losses were enormous. In the 8th Air Force, we lost 26,000 men. We had 28,000 POWs and 18,000 wounded. In my little group, we had 784 dead and 895 POWs. And we went into a target from the initial point, and we could not do evasive action because we had to have a level, stable platform to drop our bombs. If we didn't hit the target, we were wasting lives. We would have to come back another day to hit that target. So we had to give that stable platform, and we were sitting ducks. And our fighter protection, unfortunately, at that time was limited. They couldn't take us to and from the target. And so we were hit badly. And things changed in the very end of December of 1943, beginning of 1944, when the P-51s and P-47s were modified, and they could take us to and from the target. And the whole philosophy of the air war changed at that point. Before that, the bombers were the offense of the American forces. We were the offense. We were striking deep into Germany. But after that, when we had to have complete domination of the air in order to have D-Day. And it was the fighters who then became the offense. They had to destroy the enemy. And we were the decoys to lure the fighters up so that they could be shot down. And there came a point, as Bud knows, in March of 1944, when Jim Doolittle released the bombers from released the fighters from the bomber stream when there were no enemies in sight, and they could go down and attack the airfields and destroy them below. And they were the ones who achieved, the fighter planes were the ones who achieved complete domination of the air and made D-Day possible. We did continue our missions, but it was the fighters from the beginning of 1944 until D-Day that did the job. Now, my first mission, as has been told, was over Bremen, and we lost 7 planes. Our B-17 was shot up very badly. It couldn't be used for a week. But I considered any mission a milk run where nobody was injured on the plane. I couldn't care what happened to the plane. They could be repaired. But that was a milk run. Nobody hurt, milk run. Our second mission was a long one, 9 hours in the air to East Prussia, Marienburg, and we didn't lose a single plane. We had no damage. Other groups were hit badly. And our third mission, as has been said, was to Munster. And it has been reported to me it was the most intense air battle of the war. I think there were more German fighter planes than we had in the bomber stream that day. We started off with 20 in our group. 7 aborted, 13 went on, and when we came toward the IP, waves of German fighters swept through our group and shot down all 12 of the planes other than ours. And we continued on to the target. We had 2 very seriously wounded, had a rocket hole through the wing, severe damage, number 1 and 2 engines out. And from the IP on, the fighters left us alone because they didn't want to be shot down by their own flak. We dropped bombs on the target, came off, and looked up. Co-pilot tapped me on the shoulder, and there at 1 o'clock high were a whole bevy of German fighter planes eyeing us. And I called upon that experience I had in training. We were alone. I could do this. I went into violent maneuvers. I drove the plane down, pulled it up sharply. I did chandelles, lazy S's, and they thought we were completely out of control, and I guess we were. And finally, they left us to go after some easier targets, and we turned home. We threw everything overboard and came back to find out we were the only ones who returned. And we were told, we were authorized or delegated to attend a critique. It seemed that Curtis LeMay, the head of the 3rd Bomb Division, would have a critique after every number of missions where he could find out from the lead crews and the command pilots what they had done, and if they didn't do the right thing, he would chew them out mercilessly. When I attended the critique, there was Curtis LeMay with a dead cigar in his mouth, a scowl on his face. I thought he was old as Methuselah. He was only in his late 30s. And sure enough, people got up there and they told their story, and he chewed them out. And I quivered. I finally got up. I told my story, and he said, "Good." Well, to me, good is so-so, mediocre. But after the critique was over, a group commander came over to me, clapped me on the back. He said he had never heard such lavish praise from Curtis LeMay.